And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Katrina, and very excitingly today, I have another special guest on the channel. Today, I am joined by the lovely Katey Lovell, author of Nothing New for Sophie Drew, which came out on Monday. Happy publication week, Katey.
Oh, thank you so much. It's lovely to be here, and it's especially special to be celebrating with you because we have previously celebrated my publication days in person. So
We have.
It's really lovely to actually be keeping the tradition going in the new COVID sense.
Yes, long may that last.
Not the COVID.
No, the tradition.
Yes,
and I even got myself a green tea because last time we celebrated publication day, we celebrated in Wagamama's and we had green tea. So.
We did, and next time we also will. So yes, we'll do it again soon.
100%. So I have lots of burning questions for Katey, and I'm sure that people watching have lots of burning questions for Katey as well. But before we dive into my probing questions, would you like to tell us a little bit about Sophie Drew and this publication, Nothing New for Sophie Drew?
Yes, Nothing New for Sophie Drew is the first book in a trilogy based around the heroine, who is, of course, Sophie Drew. She's perhaps an unlikely heroine in that she starts off really struggling. She feels that she's not enough. She's turning 30. All her friends seem to be getting their lives in order, getting married, having babies, getting promotions, and she's just plodding along. So yes, this is the first book, and it follows Sophie. She tries to get her financial difficulties and her debts paid off, and also get over her awful ex, Darius, who's, yes, it's not good. Darius, yes, he's a bit of a snake, to be honest. And this isn't a spoiler because I know that you're very much spoiler-free.
We are fully spoiler-free on this channel.
Yes, but Darius, it's not really even Darius that she's necessarily attracted to anymore. She just really loves Darius's daughter and hates that when she lost Darius, she also lost her. So yeah, I don't know what else you want to say about Sophie and Sophie Drew in terms of, I know you've just read it, so as a reader, you probably have it fresher in your brain than I do, although I've read it so many times. You've read it this week.
Well, I feel like you're quite familiar with Sophie as a character because this isn't just a standalone novel, is it?
No, it's not. It's the first in a trilogy. And again, without going into spoilers, if you think of something like Sophie Kinsella's Shopaholic series, it's the same kind of premise, really, and the same as a lot of books, the same as Marianne Keyes and her early books. They've got the same characters, but obviously the plot develops because life goes on and life changes, and that's what happens. And that's what happens in Sophie's life as well, and in the next two books, which are out later in the year.
And yeah, we don't have to wait too long for the second book in the series, do we? Which I'm very excited about because I need to know what happens next.
It's out in July, the second book. So yes, there's not a long wait. And the next one is due out, I think it's the 10th of July and the 1st of November, possibly, for the next two. So by the end of the year, they should both be out, and you'll have the full trilogy. And I don't know if there'll be anything beyond that. The trilogy is what I'm contracted for, but whether we'll take it down another channel, we'll see. If there's enough call for it, then I've got ideas of things that can happen to one of Sophie's best friends, and I might write a novel based around Torna, who's one of her childhood friends.
I really enjoy Torna's name as well. I like the fact that she's got a bit of a different name. And so I was like, when it first came up, I was like, oh, how do we say this? I like it.
Yeah, I think that was it. When I was choosing the names, obviously that's something that you have to think, have I used this name before in a book? And because I've written quite a few now, and especially because I had the Meet Cute series, which again I know you've read, there were
Yeah.
9 books, 9 short stories in that. And so before you know it, they were my first things I had published, and I've already used 9 couples with some of my favourite names. And then I've had another, this is my 5th full-length novel. So yeah, you get through them. You think, oh, there's lots of names out there, and you look through the baby book. But no, actually, names that people really have, there aren't that many. Although I don't think I've ever had anyone with your name, so maybe I could add you in next time.
Make a little cameo. Make a cameo in a book somewhere. I like
Yes.
that. Hayley has commented she is currently reading Sophie Drew, and she's loving the magpie loving Sophie.
Oh yeah, I had to have some football in there. Hi Hayley, because I do know Hayley through social media. So yeah, it's good to see you here, and I know that you, as a football fan, a Spurs fan, will appreciate that, and the scenes of going into a football ground. And I really, really wanted that to be a part of Sophie's life, because the book is set in Newcastle, and I think that Newcastle are really well known for having passionate football supporters. It's one of the cities that, it's out on a limb. It's a very working class city traditionally. And so a lot of people that worked in the industries that were around there spent their weekends at the football, and that's continued. And I wanted to really have that as part of Sophie's life.
And I love the fact that we have like actual scenes that take place when Sophie has gone to a football match, like when she's inside the stadium. Like, I feel like you don't get that in a lot of rom-com novels, and it is a reality. It's not just the heroes of the novel that go to the football, the heroines can go too.
Okay, I had a season ticket at Sheffield United for my sins for a whole, I think, 10 years or something like that before I had my son, when they were not in the Premier League for the majority of that. And they're not going to be in the Premier League next year either. But yeah, so I think that it's really important to me that women can be represented as having a whole host of different interests. And yes, Sophie does love shoes. She does love pink. She does love having a facial and all the things that, are stereotypically ways that females spend their money and their time. But that's not all she is. And her time at the football is very special because it's her time that she spends with her dad. That's what's really lovely, is that for a lot of people that is their family time, and I wanted to get that across, really.
And then Hayley also says, and I can back this up, like, she's not that far in, but we do hate Darius. So if you like a character, having a character that you can love to hate, yeah, that's him.
Yeah. When I was writing Darius, every time I mentioned him, my skin would kind of crawl and I'd sort of flinch, because there was just something about him. And I mean, everyone's got bad characters in their books. I read a lot as well as write, as you know. We originally met because I was also a book blogger before I was an author. So we read a lot of books. We see a lot of bad boys, and sometimes the bad boys are made out to be good boys, but I wanted someone who was pretty irredeemable, but that still had some kind of charm. And although I think it's quite hard for a reader to perhaps see Darius's charm, the fact that Sophie is so in love with his daughter Summer, that is the big part of the draw. And Darius is good looking. He's slimy and he has a lot of issues, but he is a good looking man. So I was kind of thinking when I wrote him of people from the reality shows like The Only Way of Essex or Made in Chelsea, and some of the bad boys in that, who, they've got some kind of charm that somehow keeps people coming back to them.
Well, it's Made in Chelsea meets Geordie Shore.
Exactly. That is it.
Yeah.
I might get them to add that on the strap line.
Yeah, there we go. You can quote me. I'm going to dive into a couple of questions because we are getting a couple of comments in, but they do link into a couple of things that I am going to ask Katey about. So I'm going to bring those in as we ask. So we're going to start with, I think we've covered an awful lot of like some of the questions that I'm leading into, but I would like you to tell me, first of all, what is the one thing that you love most about this book?
Oh my goodness, how do I start? The thing I love most about this book is the female friendships. It has been marketed as a rom-com, and it kind of is a rom-com. It is a women's fiction book in the same way as if you read people like Philippa Ashley or Miranda Dickinson, those kind of authors. There are elements of both the more commercial chick lit side and the women's fiction side. But I really didn't want it to just be about that. A lot of my books seem to be set around communities and friendships. Yeah, one of my favourite things is the fact that although they're all very different, Sophie has got this group of friends. Sophie, and there's Torna, who's kind of trying to think of a way to describe Torna. She's feisty and fiery, and she speaks her mind. She's got a heart of gold. She's a bit of a tart with a heart, I suppose. Not in the way that she puts herself about, because she's getting married. She's the bridezilla in the book. But yes, that is what I really love. That there's Sophie, who's struggling to get her life in order. There's Torna, the bridezilla, who's, all about image. And then you've got Eve, who's into STEM. She's a scientist. She's very, very bright. But they've been friends for so long that it doesn't matter about their differences. And I think that a lot of us have got friends like that. I'm really fortunate to have a group of friends. And although they weren't based, these characters weren't based on my friendship group at all, I do have one friend who's a scientist with an MA that works in a laboratory. And I think that she probably did kind of give me the idea of, again, not having these stereotypical female characters that are, one-dimensional, because we're not one-dimensional. We've got so many facets to ourselves. So yeah, that's my favorite thing, the female friendships.
Yeah, I love that there's so many more female characters in books popping up who are into STEM. But Torna, I imagine, is the kind of person who wouldn't be caught dead out of her heels. If you catch her out of her heels, yep.
Absolutely, yeah. She doesn't want anyone seeing her, without her full face of makeup and her lippy. I know that we both got our lippy off today. But she's very much all into her image. She has her appointments to have her nails done every week. Yeah, that's the kind of girl that Torna is. But again, there's more to her than meets the eye as well. Like everybody else, Sophie thinks that Torna always lands on her feet, but we'll see if she does.
But as you say, that's something that the female friendship side of it is something that I think comes across strongly in all of your books. Their friendship reminded me a lot of the friendships in the Sing Along Society for Singletons. Like, I could kind of see that group of friends fitting in nicely with that, except Torna would still have her heels on, obviously, even though she's wearing pajamas. Yeah. So it's nice that you can kind of pick up that that's something that matters a lot to you, because it is a theme that continues across multiple novels of yours.
I hope that people who pick up my books will know that that's what they're going to get. Strong friendships, strong sense of place is also really important to me. And I think that's what I tend to get a lot of comments about. People read my books and they say, "Oh, I love that you've set a book in a certain place." I know that you did say that we might talk about this in more detail. I don't know.
We are going to talk about setting. We'll come back. We'll circle back to that one.
They're the things that people seem to talk about liking, and I want that to be almost my brand. But if you pick up a Katey Lovell book, you know that as well as there being some romance, there will also be really strong friendships and community, and yeah, there'll be a strong sense of place.
Yeah. Hayley also commented, which leads into a question that I have, that she enjoyed the charity shop aspect of this. So fairly early on in the book, there is a scene where Sophie spots a jumpsuit in a charity shop window. I could really clearly picture this jumpsuit. I was very excited. And this book, as well as having Sophie go into a charity shop, deals with, that you touched on at the beginning, like personal finances and kind of like managing debt. Because, you know, a lot of us, if we go away to university, we just end up with this debt no matter what our sort of financial situation is. We're always going to have this debt from like student loans, and then what we decide to do post university with our finances. And like, what led you to that? Was that something like a specific catalyst, or that you hadn't read about that in other books and saw a gap for that? What was the inspiration behind that? Because I really appreciated that as well.
I think it's one of those things that people don't really talk about enough. The fact that there is often an expectation to keep up with people, and that's where it originated from. Sophie is trying to keep up with her circle of friends, with Torna and with Darius, because they're the kind that are all about how they look and what they own. So I wanted to get that across, that yes, there's a lot of pressure on people, especially young people, to have everything. And I think especially in this social media age, we're bombarded with adverts. You can't really get away from it. If you're watching TV or if you're scrolling on Twitter, everyone's selling something. And it's so easy to spend money without realizing you're spending it, and it to build up. And that's why I wanted to do it, because I wanted to kind of show that, yeah, it's not always about people spending ridiculous amounts of money, although she does spend money on some expensive items, but it's about how that can spiral. And at the moment, I'm reading a book actually that's my agent at the time I wrote Nothing New for Sophie Drew is also the agent for, I can't think of the lady's name, Claire somebody, My Frugal Life, who's on Instagram, and she's written a book, I think it's called Real Life Money. And so that was also kind of in my mind, because I'd heard my agent talking about, oh, I've got this client who's writing this book about, you know, trying to pay back debts. And so I thought, oh, yeah, I can use that. So yeah, I like you say, I think we need to have this kind of thing mentioned in these kind of books. There are lots, you know, women's fiction deal with a lot of issues. People who say that they're light reads, no, they're not light reads. They deal with all sorts of issues, as
Absolutely.
people here probably know, because they probably read a lot of this kind of fiction. Yeah, I just wanted that to be another thing that people can read about if they feel that that's something they can relate to.
Yeah, as you say, like real life things coming up, like, yeah, we read for escapism, but we don't want it to be, you know, if you want to be completely escapist, then read sci-fi, read fantasy. But if you're coming for this like world where I can recognize characters like me, you want them to be going through things like you are going through.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to jump into the setting, and then we've got a couple of questions. I am seeing a couple of questions coming in as well, so we'll try and fit these in, because you are answering some of the questions as we go along anyway. So yeah, no, that's great. This is very organic. So yeah, I wanted to know specifically sort of why you chose to set the book in Newcastle. You've touched on that already, and it was nice having the book set there, because it's definitely a setting that's familiar to me. But thinking about, you know, settings in general, Linda wants to know, when choosing a setting for your book, do you always go with somewhere that you've been that's familiar, or do you go, I want to research this city or this part of the country, world, whatever, and do have your inspiration boards?
Yeah, well, quite often it tends to be places I know. the Sing-Along Society for Singletons, which you mentioned as my debut, that was set in Sheffield, which is where I live. So I obviously know it inside out. People say write what you know, and I suppose that's what I did. I wrote about a place that I was so familiar with. The house was set on my house that I lived in when I was a student. The shops were shops I went in, and the restaurants were restaurants I went to, and the theatre was the theatre I go to. So that was really easy. And then again, when I wrote Joe and Clara's Christmas Countdown, that's set in Manchester. And again, I know Manchester really well. I wrote quite a bit of the book in Manchester. I was going on day trips to see friends, and I'd sit and write in a cafe. So Newcastle, I don't know as well. I've only been once. Actually, I've been twice. I've been once for football and once to go to the city. I've been twice. And I don't know it especially well, but my husband went on a stag do there around the time I was writing the novel. So I said to him, right, you need to find out which is the bit where the best bars are, which is the bit where this is. And using that really to kind of get a bit of insight into a part of Newcastle that I didn't really know. And I also spoke to a few friends of mine who live up that way, including Caroline Roberts, who people may have read some of her books because she lives up that way, and I thought she'd be a good person to tap into. So yeah, Caroline gets a thank you at the end of the book for helping me with that. In terms of places that I've never been, when I wrote my steamy book, One Night in Los Angeles, I've never been to Los Angeles. They'd asked me to pitch a place that I would like to set this sort of steamy romance, and I originally wanted to call it One Night in Hollywood. But they said, oh, it doesn't really fit with the ones that other authors are submitting. They're all about the actual city. So, okay, I need to be able to make this bigger rather than just set in Hollywood. I did quite a lot of research using Google Maps for that. Ooh. And trying to find which are the best hotels, which are the best, all sorts of different things, which are the best elements of the city. And then the hotel that is in that book, eventually, after the book had been published, I stayed at. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, so I went to stay there. It's the Millennium Biltmore. For anyone who knows it, it was used in, I think, Coming to America. It's been in a few films anyway, as a location, and it is very lovely. The communal areas are great. It's a dated hotel in a lot of ways in the rooms, but the communal areas have got sweeping staircases and absolutely gorgeous chandeliers and all this sort of thing, which really fits with the opulence of that book.
Oh, that's a cool story. I love how you set the book somewhere and then you got to go and visit there.
It was so exciting. When we decided we were going to do this big holiday, we had we said, right, we're selling our house. We're going to buy a smaller house and have a big holiday. And I said, right, well, if we're going to LA, I want to stay there. And we did, only for a couple of nights.
That's very cool. I always like trying to find out books set in places that I haven't been to, like where's real, where's not real, and like when I go and visit, try and visit somewhere that actually comes up in the book.
Yeah,
that's always good fun.
I wrote Make Do and Mend a Broken Heart, which has just been relaunched as How to Mend a Broken Heart. They said they wanted that set in somewhere around the area of Whitstable. I don't know that area of the world at all, really. But they wanted it in a fictional place. So we made up Rockgate Bay by using, it came from Margate, really, adapting Margate to be Rockgate Bay. So yeah, it's the same kind of thing, I suppose, but trying to find bits of, even if you're making a fictional place, putting elements in, like you said when we were talking earlier before we came on air about Jessica Redden's books. You can tell, if you know the area, you can tell where they're set, even though it's not explicitly that same place. And I hope that elements of that come through in some of the fictional places that I have created.
Yeah, I think that, the fact that this one's set in Newcastle, and I think so many of us have been to a hen do, stag do, big night out there. So I like the fact that you did have a little bit of that set in, like dropped in.
It was really, really good fun to write. I did very much enjoy. I loved writing this book. Really, it was a book that was just an absolute pleasure. It took a long time to get it homed. It was quite quick to write, but a long time to get polished. And then I moved it 4 years ago now, so it's been quite a long time finding a home. People said lovely, lovely things when it went out on submission, but that we love it, but it's a bit similar to, I got told it's a bit similar to Lucy Vine, a bit similar to, I can't even think who the others were, but they all said we've got authors already that are too similar and we wouldn't want to have a competing author.
That kind of leads me into another question, actually. So you talking about that, so hold that thought. This question here, was there like a part of it that was harder to write than others, and why? Maybe I need to sort of change that. Was it like in the editing process, what was kind of the hardest part?
Yeah, I always find editing the hardest, to be honest. Drafting is time consuming, but editing I really struggle with because I find it hard to cut back, because I write very much in the way I speak. I think that my people who know me, who read my books, say, "Oh, it's just like you're talking to me." And when I've been out on submission, editors always say, "Oh, I love your voice," which is great. Not my voice, my speaking voice. My voice as how I write.
Your authorial voice.
Yes, my authorial voice. I quite like that. Yeah. So yeah, I think that the editing bit is always most difficult, and I had to. Oh, actually, I've just remembered something that was really hard.
Okay.
I changed it from being. I'm sorry, I can't even remember which way round it was now. I want to say I changed it from first person to third, but I don't know if I did. I did a big change anyway. I might have to come back to you about that, but there was a big change. Oh no, it wasn't. It was from present to past, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it was present tense and I changed it to past tense. That was my big change. Like I say, it's a long time ago now, so I couldn't even remember, but now it's all come flooding back. My repressed,
I'm really sorry I've opened up that can of worms.
All back to the forefront of my mind, changing it all. Yeah, oh gosh, that was the hardest part, going through it all. And even when I've gone through the edits again recently, ready for publication, things were still being picked up as saying, "Oh no, this is in the wrong tense." How? We've been through this a million times, so I'm really sorry if any have slipped through. It took a long time.
Well, I definitely didn't notice any, and I am not the biggest fan of reading in present tense, so I appreciate that change, and I feel like I would have picked it up because I'm not a massive fan of that, so I really don't think there's any left in there.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. Wow, that is a massive change. That must have been.
It really was. I'm sort of, why has someone
time-consuming?
Yeah, I sort of, why has someone not created an app that does this for you?
Yeah. Why is there not an algorithm you can plug in? Yeah.
Going through every little thing, and I've got a copy. Well, I've got lots of copies of the book here, but I've got a copy of the book here, and just reading through it now, and I was sort of looking, thinking, how did I manage to do that? Oh gosh, yeah, I can't even find examples of it now because, like I said, I've pushed it all to the back of my mind. But yeah, it was a long, hard process.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for opening that up, but there we go. We've talked about character names and picking Sophie and her friends, but for the inspiration behind Sophie, where did that come from? What was that?
The first thing that came to me about Sophie was actually her name. I had her name before I had anything else. I knew I wanted to write about Sophie Drew, and I had the title, Nothing New for Sophie Drew. The titles often come to me first. The same thing happened.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, the same thing happened with the Sing Along Society for Singletons, and it kept the same title. And then Joe and Clara's Christmas Countdown. It was originally Kip and Clara's Christmas Countdown, but it got changed because there was another Kip in a book that was being published at a similar time. So yeah, the name came to me first, and then I don't even know really where she came to me from. It's not, like I said, it wasn't based on a particular person. In other books, I've had even images, and like you said about mood boards, I had mood boards of who all the characters were, especially when I wrote Sing Along. I had Pinterest boards, and everything was really laid out down to the nth degree, and I knew exactly what was happening. With this book, it wasn't like that at all. Like I said, I started writing it, and I wrote it in chronological order. I hadn't really decided anything other than Sophie was going to have financial problems, and she was going to have to choose between her past and her present, really. Yes, I'm really sorry, Linda. I don't have any direct inspiration for her.
But it gives us insight that you thought of the name first, and I had no idea that your books, the titles came to you first, because so many authors go like writing the book for like a year, 18 months with no title. I'm like, that blows my mind.
Well, again, without giving too much away, as I've said before, this is part of a trilogy, and the 3 books all have a similar rhythm. The titles all have a similar rhythm to them, and they all have Sophie Drew in the title. So without giving anything away, like I say, I just felt the rhythm of the name suited what I was trying to do. And I think part of it was perhaps the name came, I think, partly from Sophie Kinsella, because and I was trying to write something not necessarily like the Shopaholic series, but in that kind of field. Drew, I wonder if it came from Nancy Drew, because I did read the Nancy Drew books as a child, so I'm wondering if that's where it came from, because I don't know anyone with that surname. I know one Sophie when I was at school, but other than that, I don't know any Sophies either. So, yeah.
I went from reading your book to then picking up another book whose main character was called Sophie, and I was like, I kept like at the beginning I was like, but no, that character doesn't do that, and I'm like, no, it's a different Sophie. But this Sophie did also have some money issues. I was like, what's going on here?
So what is it?
So I read, it's literally right behind me right here. Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, Jenny Colgan, which is like 2008. I had 3 of hers on my shelf. I read 2 of them last month. I tried to read this one. Main character Sophie is a riches to rags type of story. You know, she had it all until she didn't.
Yeah. I think I might have read it a long time ago, and I know that Jenny Colgan's books are being reissued this summer.
There you go.
With new covers to match her.
I feel like they've had so many new covers recently. Like the version I've got isn't the same as the version that popped up on Goodreads, isn't the same as the version that I was listening to the audiobook of. But the audiobook was a US cover, and so I do have a UK versus US cover coming up. But yeah, it was funny that I jumped straight from yours to reading that literally like one day to the next day, and I was like, it's Sophie again. What's going on?
Yeah, that ought to be a theme. You ought to do a month of reading just about Sophies.
That could be a whole thing. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, we'll find books with main characters called Yeah, because I've covered Sophie now, so.
Yeah, you've done all the Sophies that are out there. There are no Sophies left.
You kind of like touched on this earlier as well, just kind of going back to your sticking with the characters. So I would say that you write pretty sort of strong women in your novels. I loved how on top of like her finances Sophie was in here. She was like, this is my financial plan, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing. And she was very kind of transparent about that in a way, and she knew how she was going to get there and how she wanted to kind of plan that out. But do you ever worry when writing strong women like Sophie, like Eve that's into her STEM, like Torna who's very much like, this is what's going to happen? Do you worry that readers will dislike them for being too alpha or too outspoken, or is that ever something that's in the back of your head?
Funnily enough, people always say my characters are too nice.
Oh.
Yeah. Again, the agent that I was working with on this said, right, you've got to make them so they're not quite so nice.
Okay.
Because I think I'm just a nice person. Again, when I wrote Make Do and Mend a Broken Heart, my editor said, everyone in the town's just so nice. And I said, is that a bad thing? And they made me make a character in that book so that she was less nice because there wasn't enough conflict. I think I just go away from conflict where possible. But in terms of the strong women, I don't really worry about what people think about characters like that because, like I say, I read a lot, and I've read every female character that you could have. I've read the really ballsy, feisty ones, and I've read the quiet, introverted ones. And I think as long as you can get a reader on side and to see why they are the way they are, it doesn't really matter. I think that's the main thing, making them believable. If a character is believable, it doesn't necessarily matter if they're not exactly like the reader.
Which like really leads nicely into my next question. You're segueing into it there. How important is it to you that readers see themselves in your books? You touched at the beginning on how friendship groups really reflect your own friendship, but like, is that something that you consciously think about as you're writing?
Yeah, I think it probably is actually. I want people to see themselves in books, which is why I think it's really important to have plenty of diversity. But again, I don't want to write too much about things that I don't understand myself. But yeah, I think it's important that even if you don't see the whole of yourself, if you're not one character, you might say, oh yeah, but I've got a bit of Sophie and a bit of Eve, or a bit of, I've even got a bit of Darius in me somewhere. And there might be that sounds a bit dirty. It wasn't meant to. No, I think it's important to me that readers can relate and see themselves. And I would love to write more. When I've written, there are lots of elements of myself in my books. Again, my first book was about a person who worked in a primary school, and I'm a nursery nurse. So I think that I do draw on my own experiences and my friends' experiences and people I read about in the papers' experiences. Or I think, oh, I've never met an arborist before. Maybe I need to put an arborist in my knitting book, or whatever. And I make a little note. So, yes, it's important that readers see themselves in my books, and I would desperately love to be able to write a bisexual or pansexual character. It's just very hard to find publishers still that are willing to take a chance on it.
I would read that. I would be all over that. Like, we need more of that in women's fiction. Like, there's an audience for it, and I think publishers need to catch up with themselves and realize that we need to read that.
Well, I'm really hoping so, and I know that there are publishers out there who are making a conscious effort to do more. I know Mills and Boon have got a big drive to try and get some fiction that's based around LGBTQ. So yeah, fingers crossed there'll be more of that, and when it becomes mainstream, I'll be writing it. Well, I'll be writing it anyway, but it will be out there.
Yes, we'll wait with bated breath for that one. Yeah. Just a couple of comments that feed into what we've been saying. Like when we were talking about reading things, personal finance coming into reading and reading for escapism, Hayley sort of agreed with what we were saying that escapism, but also we're being informed and leading back into what we just said, feeling seen as well.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear, because I think that's what authors want. We want to be able to sweep people away, but for me, like you say about sci-fi and everything else, I read those kind of books, and I mean, I've read things like Harry Potter, and yeah, they're not real. My books aren't real, but they're more relatable, and I think that hopefully people can see elements in themselves.
Yeah, and then Hayley's up for like a themed month of reading certain character names, because we've had like months where we've read, like we had Mike Gale March where we read a Mike Gale book each week. This time last year we were reading Paige Toon's entire back catalogue, and so she's up for doing a character name themed buddy read with me, and then hopefully
maybe that's the way to go. Maybe I'll join in. Maybe we need to find another, like say, another Sophie book, or have a think about a name that we can find and we can get it trending on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. Or yeah, we'll think on that. If anybody has any ideas, if you're watching this afterwards, let us know in the comments. What do you think? And yeah, just so Hayley's saying that Sophie being in her 30s and being the oldest of her family, she sees herself in that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry that you feel a bit so, but I'm glad that you find her real. Yeah, because that is important. And I think that people do think, for some bizarre reason, that you're going to reach a certain age and everything will be sorted. I remember when I was 25, I thought, oh, 25 is so old. And obviously 25 is not so old. But at the time, it felt like everything ought to be in order by the time I was 25, and I wasn't married, and I didn't have a child, and I didn't have a steady job. I'd graduated, but I didn't really, I hadn't found where I was going to be working. So yeah, I kind of think for Sophie, that milestone is 30. She's decided 30 is when everything ought to be sorted by, and it's not. So hopefully, I think without spoiling it, she gets herself together a bit and things change throughout the series. But I imagine if I carried on writing Sophie long term and did like an Adrian Mole kind of thing where it goes right through, she'd be 40 and 50, and it would just be something different, because that's the way life is. We sort out one issue and something else creeps up on us.
Yeah. I have another question, and then there's another one in comments that I definitely want to cover. But I want to try and get this one in, as I think it might be a bit of a tricky question. So this is, you obviously wrote your Meet Cute series, but aside from that sort of series, your novels have been standalones. So I don't know if this question is going to be easier because you're now writing a trilogy, but did writing this novel, do you think it changed you as an author?
Yes. Yeah, I think it did. Because, like you say, being part of a trilogy, it's hard. I never really realised it. Growing up, like I said, I was all about series reads. I read all the Nancy Drew books. I read sort of Sweet Valley books, Babysitter's Club, all those kind of books that were big. There were standalones I read as well, but I was really into a series. And again, when I was, as an adult, like I say about the Marianne Keyes books, I read all those when they came out. So 20 years ago now, more than 20 years ago, which I can't quite believe it's 20 years since I read Watermelon for the first time.
I remember going and buying watermelon. I
yes,
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And there's specific colours, the watermelon, the green for watermelon. Lucy
Yeah.
Sullivan's getting married in blue, and then the pink for
Yes.
Rachel's holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yes, they're all lined up, and they were all about the same thickness, and they look so good on the shelf. So yeah, I think that I can't remember how I got onto that now. Oh yeah, writing a series.
Yeah.
So yes, it was a new challenge, and it's definitely made me think more about making notes, more specific notes as I go along. I plan things out fairly loosely, and I always have. I think that now, going forward, I will always have a proper, well-developed character folder, dossier to have everything written down so that I know. And then if I do want to write another series, I will be able to, because writing the second book, which I have finished writing and editing, I realised how much you had to retain.
Yeah.
Would they really say that? And I know people change, but is that believable? And then little things, like Max's car. Have I mentioned what colour it is? I know it's a Mini. What I need to go back and see. So I think that's definitely changed the way I work.
Yeah. We have touched on this a few times throughout. We've mentioned many different authors, but Linda wants to know, which authors do you like to read? We've mentioned the obvious Marion Keyes, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah, because I think everyone that writes that kind of fiction wants to write like Marion Keyes. She's just amazing, and she's such an amazing woman as well. I mean, I don't know her personally. I've never met her, but just whenever you see her, she's so full and vibrant, and
I have met her once. I did get to meet her.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, and she's just as bubbly in person. She was just like, fabulous.
Yeah. So I love reading her books, and I've read probably all of them. You mentioned Mike Gale. I love Mike Gale's books, and again, I remember reading My Legendary Girlfriend when that first came out, and my boyfriend at the time bought me a copy of that because he liked the title, and I was a legendary girlfriend, although not like the one in the book. So for anyone who's read the book. So other authors that I read, Krista McLaughlin, I like Rachel Burton's books, Sarah Bennett, Mary Jane Baker, lots of people in a similar genre to mine that also write about communities. I'm trying to think. I don't want to miss anybody out that I really love reading at the moment.
Oh, we know that we'll probably miss people out. It's like if anyone asks me, obviously, when you read as much as we do, people are like, oh, so who's your favourite author? And it changes every time. And I'll give you a list of like 10, and it'll be a different 10 every time.
Exactly. But at the moment, I'm making my way through the Murder Most Unladylike series by Robin Stevens. Which is aimed at it started off being aimed middle grade, and then it kind of ups a bit so that it's more, younger end of young adult. But they're great if you're into anything kind of mystery based or boarding school books, which are a big thing of mine, because going back to the series reads, I did Mallory Towers,
Mallory Towers,
Trevisan, and all those, St Clair's. So I think that, I read just widely, but commercial fiction, any kind of commercial fiction. I've loved Ruth Ware's books as well, for the kind of psychological thriller.
I have not read any Ruth Ware yet. Hayley is always on at me to read more Ruth Ware, and I need to.
Yeah, they are good. And I've also recently read Holly Bourne's new book, enjoyed that. And my favourite book so far this year is called The Lost Apothecary. I don't know can't remember who it's by. It's got a gorgeous purple cover. It's dual time frame, very feminist, fantastic. I loved it.
I have seen the cover and I adore the cover. It's almost like marbly paint almost, isn't it? Like the
Yeah,
purpley.
yeah, it's all purpley and it's got like
Yeah.
not a test tube. I can't think what they're called. Like you put on a Bunsen burner. I suppose it is a test tube, but it's not a long thin test tube. It's one of those
Yeah.
ones.
A
I can't
conical
think what they're called.
flask.
Yes, that's the
Yeah.
word. So you can tell I'm not a STEM person. I got an E in A-level biology. So
Well,
yeah.
I really hope that my scientist parents watching this are proud of the fact that I could remember that it was a comical
I'm
flask.
proud of you. I'm very
I feel like they will also appreciate your mention of the chalet school, because I went down the chalet school hole, and then obviously so much of it was out of print, and like
yeah.
we worked so hard with the library to try and find stuff, and it's all thanks to a department store. Santa, I think, was the one who gave me like the first chalet school. It was like 2-book bundle, and yeah. Oh look, we have confirmation. They're proud that I could remember conical
Well,
flask.
good. Yeah. Like I said, I'm proud of you as well.
Yeah. But yeah, it's always so hard when you think about authors that you're reading right now, because it's like, well, who's had a book out recently? I probably like picked that up. But yeah, it's nice reading some like middle grade young adult stuff to mix it in there as well, because I think that must also help with your writing process too, because it's reading outside your genre too.
I think that part of the issue that I have is that I do read a lot of middle grade, and also I reread things like the Sweet Valley books, which I loved. They haven't aged well at all. For anyone who has read one recently, it's like so white and so it's not a good representation, but they are addictive. And I think that part of that is why I write a lot of not quite insta love, but my first drafts always feel like they go far too quickly, and they're always short. And I always have to go back and do what I got from Sue Fortin. She calls them edits. So edits where you extend what you're doing. So yeah, I always have to go and do a lot of edits, because otherwise they say, yeah, but would they really be like that? They've only met each other 3 times. I was like, yeah, I suppose so. I need to make this more believable.
Well, we are nearly out of time. I told you this was going to go quickly. We're nearly out of time. I have a final question, but kind of Hayley has commented something that is a sub question of this question. So I feel like we kind of know the answer to this one anyway. What are you working on right now? However, Hayley would like to add to this question. It's like she knew I was going to ask this. Would you ever write any more meet cutes?
Yeah, in terms of what I'm writing right now, like I said, I've just finished the edits for the second book in the Sophie Drew trilogy, and I'm writing the third. It's planned out, but I'm finding it quite hard. But it's not the writing that is hard. I think it's my brain is finding it hard at the moment, because I'm back at work now after being off work for a long time, obviously because of the coronavirus. And I was shielding because I have Crohn's disease. So I feel like the time I had to write, and when I said, oh yeah, I can definitely get this book to you by the 7th of June, and then I saw the 7th of June is only 4 weeks away, and I've got 45,000 words to write. So yeah, I've got.
It's doable.
It is doable. It is doable.
Yeah,
and
we believe in you.
Yeah, so I will. I'm definitely writing more of that. In terms of any more meet cutes, I think that's probably a ship that's sailed. Yeah, but I did love writing them, and I loved that they were given a chance, really, as well, because for anyone who hasn't read them, they're so short. They're only between, I think, 2,000 words and I think 5,000 words, perhaps, for the longest. So they're very short reads that can be read in about 15 minutes.
They're great for a like bus journey, short train journey type of thing, because you can start your journey, pick up a new book, and then like end it in that time. I love that.
they're really, majority of them are scenes. You know,
Yeah,
it's like one scene of the meet cute, the moment that the couple meet.
yeah,
And then the rest is left to your imagination pretty much, although the final book in the series does kind of bring everyone back together.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't think there will be any more meet cutes, but never say never.
yeah. Okay, okay. Well, I would just like to thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today, for giving up part of your evening.
Oh, it's been lovely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been, yeah, I was a bit nervous. I've never done anything like this before. Yeah, I don't think I've ever done an interview where people have been able to see me before.
Ooh,
I've done radio interviews, but I don't think I've ever done anything where I've been screened like this, and certainly not for this length of time. So
oh,
thank you for giving me a new experience. Maybe I'll fit some kind
no.
of Zoom call or something into a future book. But
Yes, yeah.
adapt experience and make use of it. So
Well, FaceTime works well when you're across the Atlantic, you know?
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
right. Making notes up here.
yeah, yeah. And Hayley says that this has been lovely too. So
Oh,
the yeah, thank you all for watching. The link to the book is of course in the description box, and I have a full written review on my blog as well in case you want more details. But I am excited for July when book 2 can hit our
yes.
Kindles or paperback, whatever your reading preference is.
Hopefully, it won't be too long until we'll be announcing more details about that. We just want to make sure that people don't get spoiled, because the second title is definitely a spoiler for the
It
end of the book.
definitely is a spoiler. Well, thank you so much for everybody watching. Thank you to Katey. And yeah, I will see you with another video soon, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.